by becoming a franchisee. It doesn't mean you're a clone. What it means is you have to discover these things so that it gives yourself that unique, 100% authentically original feel that only you can produce.
Welcome to the Cleaning Up Podcast, Millionaire Secrets of the Home Services Industry, brought to you by me, Ron Holt, CEO and founder of Two Maids and a Mop, America's fastest growing cleaning company. I get a chance to sit down with home service industry pros and other entrepreneurial leaders so they can share their stories, their insight, their experiences. It's so much fun. You're going to learn so much. You're going to be inspired to take your small business into a national brand just like I did. Today we have Brant Menswar. Brant is one of the country's top motivational speakers. He's an award-winning musician, podcast host. But I stumbled into Brant a few weeks ago after reading one of his newest books called Black Sheep, Unleash the Extraordinary, Awe-Inspiring, Undiscovered You. And, when I first read the quick bio and read some of the reviews, I said, oh, this is just another one of those motivational books that come and go. I don't know if everyone knows this, but on Kindle, you can pick up a quick sample without having to pay anything. And the sample just drew me in because Brant opens up with a story about his personal life. It's hard to not want to, follow. And it's very, very difficult to not be emotional about it. And it just really drew me into the rest of the book, which was phenomenal after I finished it. So, Brant, welcome to the Two Maids and a Mop podcast. I can't wait for you to share your story with everyone today.
Thanks, Ron. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
You bet. All right. So, like I said, you're by trade, you're a motivational speaker. In fact, you're one of the top 10 motivational speakers in the country now. So you write a personal self-motivational book, and again, on the cover, it kind of sounds like another one of those things, right? So why don't you share with our audience with the story, your personal story about your family, and that story is, again, what resonated most with me and really what drew me to the rest of the content within the book.
Sure. The story is really the foundation from which the book was born. And listen, anyone that knows me knows that in spite of me being one of the top 10 motivational speakers in the country, there's a part of me that wants to throw up in my mouth every time that I see that. And that's because that is just, it's not my intent. But because of my delivery, my history as a rock star, people just sort of put me in that bucket, which is fine. However, it is something that, please know, if you're listening, this was a book I wrote for the people who just want to call BS on all that stuff, because that is who I am. And I have a difficult time reading books like that. And so I tried to keep this short and sweet. The book makes a promise in the first couple of pages, which says, I promise there's no fluff in here. So, it's about 10 pages longer than a Hare Krishna pamphlet you'd get at the airport. And that is by design. I wanted to be direct and to the point, in and out, quick, have some impact, have you ask yourself some really difficult questions, and then move forward. But the book was born out of an incredibly difficult time that I had with my oldest son in 2012. My oldest son at the time was 14 years old. His name is Theo. And Theo was diagnosed with a rare blood cancer that was going to require a bone marrow transplant to save his life. And so, that started us on this journey of finding a donor and going through the transplant process. And we lived at the Florida Hospital for Children for 263 straight days. And so, we had the transplant. He received it. It went well. But then he developed something called graft versus host disease, which every transplant recipient gets. And that's basically when, the marrow that was inserted into his body didn't recognize the environment from which it's been placed. And so it begins to attack the body. It's the opposite of rejection, right? It's actually on the body's not fighting it. It's the marrow that's fighting. And so the way that you treat it is you super suppress the body's immune system so it won't fight back. And so there are 4 different levels of graft versus host disease. Everybody gets the first 1 or 2, but you hope you don't receive level 3 or 4. 4 is deadly. It will kill you. And he had like 4+. And so This disease was killing him. And so they super suppressed the immune system. And when they did that, he ended up contracting a deadly fungus while he was in the hospital. And the way that this fungus worked is it feeded off of dead cells. So you couldn't really, the only way that you could fight it is by super boosting the body's immune system and letting it try to do it on its own. Because if you went in and tried to cut it out, you couldn't cauterize the wound, because the minute you cauterized it, you killed the cells. And the minute you killed the cells, you fueled the fungus. And so we were in this incredibly difficult situation. We were told it's just impossible, right? There were two things that were threatening his life with opposite treatments, and they created this zero-sum game. And so, after a few hundred days in the hospital, my wife and I get called into the parents' lounge, and we are sitting in front of a row of doctors one night, and they looked at us and they said, "Listen, we are so sorry, but no matter which part of this we choose to treat, the other's going to take his life. And there's nothing else we can do. It's just an impossible scenario. And so we don't think he's going to make it through the night. So you should probably go and say your goodbyes and call whoever you need to call in." And, we weren't prepared for that. I don't think any parent is prepared for that. But,
right.
We stood up, I grabbed my wife's hand. We walked back to his room. We get his younger brother, who's 3 years younger than him. And, we all sit on the edge of the bed and we try to find these words to say goodbye. And, as a parent, I think the worst thing that can possibly happen to you in your life is having to listen to your child say, "I'm going to miss you, Daddy." Right. And it's this heartbreaking, wrenching scenario where I'm flailing emotionally in this moment and struggling to find the words. And so, I now have to call my family and say, "Look, this is just taking a turn really quickly and you're not going to have time to make it." So I call my younger brother, who lives in New Hampshire, 1,500 miles away. We're in Orlando, Florida. And so, I'm like, "You're going to have to say your goodbyes over the phone if you want to. If you don't, I completely understand, but it's the only way." And so, he does it. He's incredibly distraught. He hangs up the phone. That night, he decides he's going to, in a Hail Mary attempt to find a solution that we were told doesn't exist, he sat on his couch and he filmed himself holding up 55 different poster boards, sort of explaining the scenario. "My nephew's dying. We're running out of time. This is what he has. This is what we've tried. If you have any ideas, please, we're desperate. Help us. He's got less than 24 hours. And he never said a word. He simply played the song "Fix You" by Coldplay in the background. And when the song was over, he stopped the recording and he uploaded it to YouTube. I sat on the edge of the bed all night with Theo, sort of waiting for him to pass. And, the next morning he's still alive and fighting and my phone is ringing off the hook and I'm just trying to ignore it. I think one of the most difficult things in life is to be present. I struggle with it every day, and especially as entrepreneurs and franchisees, the act of being present is one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself and your business, not be sucked into the future or dragged back to the past. And I'm trying to just spend every last second I possibly can. And after a few hours, my phone is literally hot from vibrating. So I finally pick it up and I look at it and I see all these names and numbers from people that I don't know. I had not realized that my brother had filmed this video and uploaded it to YouTube. But by the time I grabbed my phone, it had already been seen over 500,000 times. And I started getting calls from people from all over the world. And some of them were doctors. And I had a voicemail from a doctor at MD Anderson in Houston who said, "Hey, somebody sent me this video. He happened to be one of the leading researchers on this fungus that was killing him. And he said, I'm not sure that your doctor is aware, but there's this new alternative treatment that might allow you to treat both things at the same time. Would you mind if I talk to him?" And so we put them in touch with each other. And then I get a call from Dr. Tim Johnson from Good Morning America, who says, "Listen, you tell your doctor to make a list of anyone he wants to talk to, and I'll do my best to see if I can't make that happen in the next 24 hours. So we made a list. And Dr. Johnson did exactly what he said he was going to do. We spoke with the leading doctor on graft versus host disease at Dana-Farber in Boston, another research doctor at Cornell University. The four doctors sort of put their head together and they came up with this crazy plan to try to save Theo's life. And it worked.
That's the best news ever.
So Theo just turned 23 years old. He actually designed the cover, the logo on the cover of this new book. But here's where the book really was born from. We understand that we got a fairy tale ending here in some aspects, right? You can't live on a pediatric oncology ward for a year and not see the truth of what it looks like. And, of the 7 or 8 people that were receiving those transplants at that time, Theo's the only survivor. And so, that reality is really hard to face. And the toughest part for me, in spite of this fairy tale ending, for the next 5 years or so, the last question I had in my head every night before I went to sleep was this incredible amount of guilt surrounded around, I wonder if Theo thinks I gave up on him. And it was a legitimate question. And the truth was, I hadn't defined my non-negotiables in life at 43 years old. And I sit there now and I go, I don't know what I based my decisions on back then. It was just purely emotion. And I made some horrible decisions, including choosing to say goodbye. And I look back now and I beat myself up over it for years because I should have never, ever allowed somebody to tell me what was possible. They don't possess that kind of power, but I gave it to them. And so if I knew then what I know now as my non-negotiable black sheep values is what I call them, the conversation I would have had with my son would have been completely different, filled with the things that matter most to me and very, very much filtered through deliberate intention. And so this book is designed for people to discover what their 5 non-negotiable values are. And how do you use those to make better decisions in your life and start to live a life on purpose? Because without understanding what those are, you can't do anything on purpose. You're winging it. And winging it is never going to bring you the sustainable success that you're looking for in business and the life of fulfillment that you want in your personal life. And so that was sort of the impetus of writing this book.
It's a tremendous story. I'm so thankful that you guys have the fairy tale ending. But you're right. It does sort of put you in a better place, almost like a better direction for the rest of your life. And so I'm sure that even though you look back on that and have some regrets, the rest of your life, you can really learn from that experience and have a shared purpose now with your family, your son even. In my world, I talk to other entrepreneurs. Some are small business owners in our franchise network. Others are highly successful, very well known, some case business legends, in the franchise world that have it all. They've got the beach house and the boat and the millions of dollars in their bank account. And whether it's the small business owner that's really kick and tell, or the franchisor that owns a national brand that everyone dreams about, it's so troubling, I guess, sometimes to see how unhappy sometimes they are. It's obviously not everyone, but it's actually probably more common than not to find someone that's really, from the outside looking in, accomplished everything, but yet looks very and feels very unfulfilled. And so I think I've shared this with our audience multiple times since we started the podcast a year ago. And it's, you start a business typically for one reason. I mean, the one reason is to make some money, but the real reason is you're missing something in your life. There's something missing that's leaving a void. And by becoming an entrepreneur, by starting a business, You believe that the journey that you'll experience as an entrepreneur, the success that comes from that, the freedom that comes from that success, all of those things will create purpose in your life. And sometimes you are able to articulate that, other times maybe not. But sometimes you get in it and it's not what you wanted. The money's great, but you don't really have a purpose, or the money's not great and you definitely don't have a purpose. And that's probably the worst thing of all. So to me, the emotional, beginning of the story obviously drags you in, and it's just heart wrenching. But the merits behind those 5 core values that you just talked about, I believe, forget entrepreneurship, apply to everyone in the world, And so,
yeah.
I guess that leads us to the ultimate question that's hard to answer, but try to answer this one. How do you get to those 5? How do you find those 5 and build a shared purpose or a purpose for your life?
So I was 47 years old, Ron, when somebody finally told me why black sheep are not valued like the rest of the flock by farmers. And the truth shocked me so much that it literally became like that lightning rod idea for the concept of this book called Black Sheep. The real reason that farmers don't value black sheep like the rest of the flock is because a black sheep's wool cannot be dyed. So every black sheep is 100% authentically original, and it can't be changed into something that it wasn't meant to be. And when I heard that, I'm like, that is literally my life's goal, is to be that 100% authentic original creation I was intended to be. And we've demonized black sheep for hundreds of years because we don't understand really where their value is. And so the truth is that farmers do value them, but in a very different way. You see, they keep 1 black sheep for every 100 white sheep in their flock. And they keep them as a marker. So every morning they wake up, if they've got 500 sheep in their care, when they look out over that flock, they should see 5 black sheep if they've got 500 sheep in their care. And those black sheep, that ability to stand out, those unique traits, gets the farmer's first look every morning. If they don't see them, they know something's wrong. It's wolves, it's disease, it's famine, it's something. But if they tried to keep their eye on the 495 other sheep that look exactly the same, you can't focus. And so the idea here is, when we discover and lead with these black sheep values, we get our clients' first look. We get our customers' first look. That's how you stand out from the crowd. That is how you become the fastest growing cleaning franchise in the country. Because when you lead with those things that separate you from the 495 other people that look exactly the same, you get everybody's first look. And so how do we get them? There's a couple of ways. You can go the long road, which is sort of diving through your past through something that Maslow would call your peak experiences in your life. And these peak experiences are these really powerful experiences, both good and bad, that you sort of diagnose as to what was the scenario, how did it come about, how did you feel, what did you take away from it? Because the truth is that some of our black sheep values are born from very bad experiences. We have this thing happen to us and we go, I never want that to happen again, or I never want to be that kind of person, or whatever that might be. And so that's the long road, but it is a very long road and requires a ton of vulnerability and courage, which is very uncomfortable for the most of us. So what we did was we developed a online assessment to really help you dip your toe into the values pool. And so it's free for everybody. You can simply go online to findyourblacksheep.com and you can click on Find Your Flock. And when you do, you will see that it presents you with 125 commonly held personal core values, right? And it says, in a knee-jerk reaction, just read through these quickly, and any word that resonates with you that you find incredibly important, go ahead and select it. And what we know now, after a couple of years and thousands of people who have taken the assessment, we know that the average person selects at least 30 words. And so when that happens, my first question is, tell me what crippling anxiety and depression feels like. Because you can't have 30 things in your life that are incredibly important to you and honor them on a regular basis. It's just impossible. And so what do? Well, we take those subset of words, those 30, 40, 50, 60 words, however many you selected, and we group them together by likeness into 5 different buckets, right? So things like sympathy, empathy, caring for others, that goes in one bucket. Things like success, achievement, accountability, that goes in another bucket, and so on and so forth. And when you're done, you've got these 5 buckets of words, and you get to pick the one word from each bucket that is your non-negotiable. What's the one word that you cannot live without? And that becomes your initial flock of 5 black sheep values. And that is the simplest way to get the conversation started with yourself to identify these non-negotiables.
Well, it's a very practical exercise that makes a ton of sense. I got to ask the question. So think back to everyone you've worked with over the years since you've sort of created this process. Can you think of, if I'm being really greedy here, can you think of an entrepreneurial minded type person, maybe they owned a business, that went through something like this and discovered some things about themselves they weren't aware, that were non-negotiables, but did not even know it after the fact?
Oh, every time. It's never not happened. Because here's the thing. When you get to your flock of 5 values, the data has shown us that 2 or 3 of them are without question 100% authentic and real. And you can give us 20 different examples for each over the course of your lives, because these values were born over the course of your life, right? They've been developed. And by the time you're in your early 20s, they're pretty well established. And outside of a catastrophic event, they simply don't change during the course of your life. And so because we know that 2 or 3 of those are real. We've seen it. We've watched them be proven, but we also know that 2 or 3 of them are simple 100% fabrication. They are either who somebody wants to be, or maybe who somebody said they should be. But when they go to track them and find proof, there's no proof to be found. So they're actually caring for other people's sheep. And that's where we get ourselves into trouble.
Well, for me, it's again, it's all about purpose. And I'll be honest, I probably could, if I could go back 17 plus years now, this exercise would have been pretty helpful for me. It was difficult for me to articulate why I wanted to start Two Maids and a Mop. It was also very difficult for me to understand why I was going through so much pain early on in the business. And even today, it's sometimes difficult, if I'm just being transparent, to understand why I'm still acting like it's the first day, every single day. Why? People ask me all the time. There's no real entrepreneurial DNA in my family. I didn't grow up, I'm not a rags to riches story. It's just, I love what I do, and it's fun. I love the challenge of proving everyone wrong. And ultimately, that's my purpose in life. I get to have fun, challenging myself. And oh, by the way, build a nationwide brand with, tons of success behind it, in front of it. So I have always felt that this business for me has been my purpose. It doesn't have to be a business. Most of the people listening to this show are going to be business owners, but your purpose can be fulfilled in so many different ways. And I think having an exercise like you've created kind of gives you almost a shortcut to finding that. But the truth is, tell me if I'm wrong here, but most people, when I say most people, I would say almost everyone, just wander through life without really understanding what that feels like to truly have a purpose in your life. Do you agree with that?
100%. I agree with that. And that's because we've been lied to our whole lives. The greatest lie about purpose is that it's something you find. That's just not true. Purpose. You don't find purpose. You choose purpose. And you can't choose purpose until you know what your non-negotiables are, because your purpose is born from your non-negotiables. So for me, my black sheep values: creativity, hope, impact, empathy, family, authenticity. I have 6, right? I have an extra 20 years as a rock. Yeah, 20 years as a rock star. We do everything to excess, brother. So I needed an extra. But my purpose, I get to choose my purpose based on those values. So my life's purpose, what gets me up every day, what keeps me committed to the goals that I have established for myself, is to creatively impact others by authentically providing hope. And if it sounds familiar, it's because it's laden with my black sheep values. See, your what and your why, your values and your purpose have to be in alignment with each other if you want to be adaptable and resilient. What you just described earlier, you were right, is that how you fulfill those things change on a daily basis, on a minute-to-minute basis. With every decision you make, you are living out that mission to honor or dishonor the things that matter most to you. And so you've got to define these things first so you can choose a purpose that's in alignment with these things, because it's those black sheep values that keep us committed and inspired and motivated to reach those things. And to be honest with you, it's one of the most beautiful things in a franchise model, right? So here's the most difficult thing for a franchisee, in my opinion. They become a franchisee of your organization. And in doing so, they accept the values that you have established as an organization. Well, just because your organizational values state a certain thing doesn't mean that my values are exactly the same. So I have to learn and basically teach myself how to build bridges between the things that matter most to me and the things that matter most to you. And in doing so, I create this unique franchise, even though it's part of a larger network of ones that are very similar when it comes to what it's about and how the company functions and those sort of rules of the road that you accept by becoming a franchisee. It doesn't mean you're a clone. What it means is you have to discover these things so that it gives yourself that unique, 100% authentically original feel that only you can produce. And I watch it done successfully with organizations like Nothing Bundt Cakes, right? 300 plus different franchises all over the United States, North America, right? They're a $400 million company. And every single one of them, when you walk through the door, feels the same, but different. Because I get to witness those personal values that matter to the franchise owners, who basically are able to say, yeah, I accept this, but I have to make it part of who I am if I'm going to stay committed to what success actually looks like. And so it's why this work is so incredibly important if you want to get your customers' first look.
Man, I love it. I love it, Brant. You nailed it here. I love the book. I hope that other people get an opportunity to read the book as well. And, it's not a book. Oftentimes you read a book, and sometimes books are very practical, and you put it down and you get to work. There's an action created because of that. This is really a self, inward type of book where there's still action after you read the book, but it could be that a lot changes. It could be that what you think you're doing is wrong. It could be that what you think you're good at is not what you're so good at, And so I think it's a very self-reflective book that everyone can benefit from, not just entrepreneurs and franchise owners. So, for those out there that are trying to reach out to you, connect with you, pick up the book, what can they do to learn more about that?
So the easiest way to sort of connect is through findyourblacksheep.com. And that brings you to the book site itself. You can get to my speaking site from there as well, which is simply brantmenswar.com. All of my social media is just at Brant Menswar, Brant Menswar. Very active on social media, so it's a good chance you'll connect directly with me. I don't have a team of people that are answering things. You actually will be speaking to me. And so I would highly encourage go ahead and follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram, so that, we can engage in these sort of discussions on a daily basis as to how to stay committed to your goals using these black sheep values.
Well, do me a favor. Tell Theo he did a great job on the cover.
You bet.
I know he's 23 years old now, but give him a big hug every time you see him now. So, what a great story, a great book, lots of great content in it, and it's going to get you to thinking. So I hope everyone has an opportunity to read the book and also connect with you as well, Brant. So thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate you.
Hey guys, Beth Lovett in Business Development. If you enjoyed this episode, then please share with your friends and don't forget to tune in to the next episode of Cleaning Up. Have you ever wondered if you wanted to be in business for yourself? If so, then don't hesitate to give me a call at 205-789-8027 or email me at bethl@ineedamaid.com. And if you just want a window shop, then you can see us online at twomaidsfranchise.com.